Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're tackling something that I think everyone, and I mean everyone, has felt. It's that feeling of being completely overwhelmed by information.
Mm-hmm.
You could be in a high-stakes exam, or really dense corporate meeting, or even just a university lecture where the professor is just flying.
Yeah, just talking a mile a minute.
Exactly. And you know you need to listen closely. That's the easy part, right?
Yeah,
But actually managing that fire hose of information, that's a whole different game.
it is. That's absolutely right. The cognitive load in those situations is just immense.
Yeah.
And for a lot of people, the way they handle it is, well, it's reactive.
They're on the back foot.
Completely. They're just waiting for the information to arrive, and then they try to process it, and then they scramble to write it down or remember it.
And it's already too late.
It's often too late.
Yeah.
And the sources we've looked at for this deep dive, they really focus on the mechanics of how the absolute best performers flip that script. They turn that reactive process into a proactive one. It's fascinating. They don't just listen for answers. They actually structure the entire listening environment before a single word is even spoken.
A proactive structure. That's our mission statement for today, isn't it?
I think so.
We're going deep into this specific methodology. It's like a cognitive rail system that separates the really high achievers from everyone else.
Yeah.
We're calling it tracking the speaker. Now, it does take discipline, but once you get it, it seems to guarantee this radical efficiency and just pulling out knowledge. It's a shortcut to never missing that critical detail again.
And this isn't just theory for a test. I mean, think about it. If you're prepping for a pitch and you have to summarize 3 hours of data in 30 seconds,
Right, yeah.
or you need to grasp the really subtle constraints of a new company policy, these strategies are the tactical difference between just recalling the surface level stuff and having a deep, precise understanding.
It's about being anchored.
Exactly. You're anchored to the flow, not just getting swept away by it.
Okay, so before we can build this amazing system, we have to understand what we're trying to prevent. We need to look at the failure mode. And honestly, this is the part that hurts because we have all been there. The sources have this perfect, almost painfully visual name for it.
They do.
Let's get into it.
Okay, so the scenario is universal. I mean, if you've ever had to focus on someone talking quickly for any length of time, you've felt this.
For sure.
You start off strong,
Mm-hmm.
the meeting begins, or the audio plays.
Does.
You're fully concentrated, you nail the first few points, you get answer 1, 2, 3,
Ah.
and you get that little wave of confidence, right?
Oh, yeah. That feeling of, okay, I've got this. I'm on track.
I'm in the zone.
And that confidence, that's the start for the fall, isn't it? Because then, without any warning, the information just keeps coming and boom.
Boom. A momentary flicker.
Yeah. Maybe the speaker speeds up, or they switch topics abruptly. Or maybe, your mind just wandered for 2 seconds while you were writing down the last answer. And then you realize, oh no, I've completely sailed past whatever they just said for point 4.
And that tiny lapse, that's the catalyst. Now, a high performer, they just let it go and move on. But what does the typical person do?
Oh, they panic. It's instant.
It's a rapid, self-generating panic. The internal monologue just kicks in.
Wait, what was 4? Did I hear that right? Did I even write down 3 correctly? Let me check.
Exactly. You start mentally rewinding, trying to go back to that point in time.
But the speaker hasn't rewound.
Yep.
The audio doesn't pause for your little internal crisis.
Not at all. And that gwelling, that mental backtracking, it causes this disastrous cascade effect. Because while you were obsessing over missing point 4, you've now completely missed points 5, 6, and maybe even 7.
You're so busy looking backward that you're blind to what's happening right in front of you.
That is what the sources formally define as the Siegel-Miffing phenomena.
Segel missing. I love that name. It's so descriptive.
It is. It perfectly captures that sudden, catastrophic loss of focus and momentum. It's like a guided missile that suddenly veers off course.
It's triggered by just one tiny point of confusion.
One tiny thing. And it happens to almost everyone who tries this kind of focused listening. The difference is the top performers have built in these mechanisms for immediate course correction, or even better, they prevent the lapse from happening in the first place.
It's that moment the cognitive load just exceeds your capacity and the whole system crashes. I remember this so clearly from university. I was in this dense macroeconomics lecture, and the professor was explaining this multi-part theory. I missed one coefficient, just one number, and my brain it froze.
Trying to get it back.
Just trying to recall that one number. And in the meantime, the entire explanation for the next variable just went in one ear and out the other, completely unheard. The panic from the first mistake just consumed all the bandwidth I needed for the rest of it.
That is the perfect illustration. You shift from listening to worrying.
Yes.
And worrying is incredibly resource intensive. Your cognitive resources, they're not capturing information anymore. They're being diverted into emotional regulation and this frantic internal review.
And that's why the cascade happens.
That's it. Once you stumble on 4, 5, and 6 become almost inevitable casualties unless you can break that cycle.
And the cost, especially in a test, it's totally quantifiable. You miss 3 or 4 questions in a row like that. You've just dropped 10, maybe 15% off your score.
Yeah.
Instantly.
It's a huge deficit. And it's almost impossible to recover from that kind of loss in the later sections, no matter how good your vocabulary is or anything else.
You're just playing catch up and you're emotionally drained.
Exactly. Which brings us to this really critical insight from the research.
Yeah.
The difference between someone who scores, say, a 7.5 and someone who gets an 8 or an 8.5.
Like the absolute top tier.
Right. It often boils down to just avoiding these specific moments of information loss. The high scorer has a proactive system that maintains continuity. It's not just that they have better comprehension in general.
It's that they have superior information flow management.
That's the perfect term for it.
So the answer isn't just to try and listen harder. That's not a strategy. It's to build this predictable structural rail system, a series of mental anchor points that keeps your focus locked on exactly where the information is about to show up.
Precisely. And that systematic preparation, that's the absolute foundation of this whole tracking the speaker methodology. It's all about making the listening process predictable, even when the content itself is completely new.
Okay, so if Siegel missing is the disaster we're trying to avoid, then tracking the speaker is the preventative medicine. And the secret sauce seems to be what you do before the speaker even starts talking. It's about using those precious 30 or 60 seconds of silence.
It's everything. That prep time is everything. The goal is to transform your question sheet from just a list of demands,
right, a list of things you need to find,
into an active navigational map. And the core technique is brutally simple. You read through the questions, and you identify and underline the key words in each one.
So we're creating a kind of expectation map for the audio. Why is focusing on just a few key words so much more powerful than just reading the whole question over and over?
Because they become these hyper-specific navigational markers. They're like little flags you plant along the path of the audio track.
Okay.
And when you hear one, it's a signal. It basically screams, "Attention! The information for question 6 is about to arrive."
I see. So without those flags, the whole audio is just one long, undifferentiated stream of words.
It's just noise, a homogeneous flow of language. But with these markers, it's no longer noise. It becomes a series of targeted opportunities, separated by periods where your brain knows it can relax a little because the content isn't relevant to your next checkpoint.
The sources had a great analogy for this about tracking something physical. I think that really helps visualize it.
Oh, the package tracking analogy. It's perfect for the modern era.
Yeah.
Think about it. When you're waiting for an important package, you don't just sit by the door and hope. You open the tracking app.
All the time. I'm constantly refreshing it.
Of course. And you know that package has a specific trajectory. It leaves the main warehouse. That's checkpoint 1. It arrives at the big hub in your city. Checkpoint 2.
Then it gets sorted to your local post office. Checkpoint 3.
And then finally, out for delivery. And here's the crucial part. If you miss a notification, say you don't see the arrived at City Hub alert, you don't panic.
No, you don't assume the package is lost forever.
You just wait patiently for the next scheduled marker. You wait for the sorted at local facility update because you know it's coming.
And the audio track works the same way.
Exactly the same. When the speaker mentions one of your key words, that's the package arriving at the City Hub.
Yeah.
You know, with certainty that the very next phrase or sentence is going to contain the final destination, which is the answer itself.
So your focus gets hyper-narrowed at that exact moment.
Right, because you know exactly what kind of information has to come next.
Okay, but this brings up a potential problem. What happens if the speaker doesn't use the exact word I underlined? Let's say I underline the word car, but the speaker says vehicle or automobile or sedan. Does the whole system break down then?
That is a fantastic and crucial question. And it's why the expert trackers don't just track words, they track semantic fields.
Semantic fields. Okay, unpack that.
A high performer understands that the key word is really a conceptual placeholder. If your key word is car, You're not just listening for CAR. You're tracking for the entire concept of automotive transport.
So anything related to that idea.
Right. If you're tracking price, you're listening for cost, fee, expense, or specific dollar amount. The key word anchors the concept, not just the rigid vocabulary. You train yourself to recognize synonyms and related ideas that fall within that conceptual space.
So the tracking methodology basically forces your brain to act like a filter. It filters out everything that doesn't relate to the conceptual field of your underlined markers.
That's it.
So if the speaker starts talking about the weather or mentioning irrelevant names, your brain just goes, nope, not relevant, and discards it efficiently.
Precisely. Let's make this tangible with an example from the source material. Imagine a question is asking when an opening ceremony is scheduled to start.
Okay, so in that case, my key conceptual marker would be time or start. I'd underline one of those.
Perfect. Now, what's the guaranteed irrelevant noise you're going to hear?
Everything else. The speaker could spend a minute talking about the history of the event, the VIPs who are attending, the beautiful location.
Right. It's in the renovated town center near the historic fountain on the newly paved courtyard.
All of that detail is designed to be a distraction, isn't it? To burn up your cognitive energy.
It's absolutely designed to do that. But if you have time underlined, you hear town center, and your brain just flags it as noise. You hear fountain, irrelevant. But the second the speaker pivots and says, the opening ceremony, however, will commence precisely at 7 p.m.
Your anchor point gets triggered, and you grab the answer.
Instantly. You've created a selective filter. What about a different type of question? One about content, not timing. Let's say it asks what kind of performance is happening on Sunday afternoon.
Okay, so there, my key markers would probably be performance and Sunday.
Good. The type of act and the time slot. So you don't care about the ticket prices or the food stalls or the seating arrangements.
No, I'm just listening for the intersection of Sunday and performance.
Exactly. You might hear a long description of the venue and the crowd first, but you're just patiently waiting for that specific marker. And when the speaker finally says, on Sunday, we are delighted to host a local jazz trio performance, followed by the fireworks display.
Your tracking system has it. The answer is jazz trio. Done.
And that proactive identification of the key words is what gives you the mental readiness to prevent that seagull missing problem we talked about.
Because your focus is already aimed at a target. You're always anchored to what's coming next, ready to capture the detail the second it appears.
It's all about leveraging the brain's natural ability to pattern match. When you read the question and underline the words beforehand, you're setting up the desired pattern. Then the audio supplies the information, and your brain doesn't have to work hard processing every single word. It just has to find the match.
Which frees up all that cognitive bandwidth for the important part, accurately capturing the answer.
That's the whole game.
This sounds simple in theory, but I have a feeling that the discipline of actually doing it is where most people would fail. It's not enough to just agree with the strategy. You have to execute the underlining part with like an intense rigor. And the number one mistake, as the sources point out, has to be over-underlining.
Absolutely. That is the cardinal sin of this technique. The goal is not to underline the entire sentence. If you underline 10 words in a question, you've created 10 equally important checkpoints.
Which is the same as having 0 checkpoints.
Exactly. It's useless. The whole purpose of the key word is to isolate the one unique critical element of that specific question.
So what's the rule? What's the golden number for word count to maintain that focus?
Maximum 1 to 2 words. Period. No exceptions.
1 or 2? That's it.
That's it. And they must be the most content-heavy, the most distinctive words in the question. This forces you to be ruthless in your prioritization. If you can't decide which 2 words are the most important, it probably means you don't actually understand what the question is asking for yet.
And you need to review it until those 2 anchor words just pop out at you.
You do. And you have to be careful to avoid the grammatical functional words. You're looking for content, specific nouns, unique verbs, key descriptors.
Right. So a word like will or take place is a terrible choice.
The worst. Think about it. The word will is going to show up in half the sentences the person speaks. It's a completely useless marker. You need something unique to the context of that question. The specific subject, the specific time, the specific place.
Let's run through a quick example to test that discipline. Okay, say the question is, which organization is responsible for promoting the new community initiative?
Okay, so the functional words are, which is responsible for promoting the new? All fluff.
Right. The essential words are organization and maybe initiative.
Perfect. I'd underline those 2. My tracking system is now laser-focused on one thing: catching the name of an entity that is driving a project. The speaker could talk for a full minute about why the initiative is so important, but I don't care. I am only listening for a proper noun or a descriptive title that fits organization.
The beauty of that strict 1 to 2 word rule is the trade-off, isn't it? It's a calculated risk.
Explain that.
Well, by choosing only 2 words, you're betting that the speaker won't paraphrase them so completely that you miss the concept. But the huge reward you get for that risk is the razor-sharp focus it provides.
That is the perfect way to frame it. It is a calculated risk. And when you only have 1 or 2 words highlighted on the page and you hear one of them spoken, let's say you hear the word organization, that cognitive connection is instant. It's powerful.
Your brain doesn't have to scan a whole underlined sentence to figure out what's relevant.
No, it immediately triggers a state of active capture. It's like a switch flips in your head, with absolute certainty that the answer you're looking for is coming in the next 1 or 2 breaths.
It shifts you from that passive listening mode to a hyper-alert, active capture mode. And that transition saves those precious milliseconds of processing time, which is exactly what stops the signal missing problem from ever starting.
And we should also mention the physical discipline here, too.
Yeah.
While you're listening, you should be using your peripheral vision. Your eyes should already be drifting down to the key words for the next question.
So even as the answer for question 4 is being said, you're already prepping for question 5.
Exactly. You keep your eyes anchored near the next set of key words. This ensures that the moment the speaker finishes with point 4, your visual system has already primed your brain for the key words of point 5. There's no lag time.
That's incredibly practical. It's leveraging both visual and auditory tracking at the same time. The goal is to practice this so much that identifying and underlining those 1 or 2 words becomes automatic.
It has to become a reflex, almost subconscious,
Yeah.
so that in the actual high-stakes moment, you're not deliberating. You're relying on instinctual pattern recognition.
Yeah, if you have to sit there for 5 seconds debating which 2 words to underline, you've already lost.
You're moving too slowly.
Yeah.
You read the question, the unique identifier should pop, you mark them, and you move on. You have to trust your markers.
Okay, let's shift gears. Let's talk about where all this preparation gets put to the ultimate test. The multiple choice question. The MCQ.
Ah, yes, the MCQ.
Because these options, A, B, C, sometimes D or E, they aren't just benign choices, are they? They are tactical weapons designed by the test makers to exploit the weaknesses of the average listener.
They are absolutely designed to do that. MCQs in a listening context are a test of your attention to granular detail and, just as importantly, your ability to resist psychological manipulation. It's about precision, not just general understanding.
And our sources break down 5 very typical types of options. Understanding the profile of each trap is, it's essential.
It's the whole game.
Let's start with type 1. This is the one that sounds, on the surface, the most correct.
Yes, this is what we call the confidence trap. This option is constructed to contain a huge majority, like 95–98% of the exact words you just heard in the audio.
So it generates this immediate false confidence. It resonates with your short-term memory. You think, oh, I definitely heard that exact phrase. This must be it.
Right, but that tiny remaining 2 or 5%, that's the entire trap. It's a single word, maybe a number or a place name, that subtly but completely contradicts what was actually said.
So the mandate here is absolute zero tolerance for error.
100%. For an MCQ option to be correct, it must be 100% traceable and verifiable against the audio, not 99. Think of this classic example. The audio says, the new facility is located 50 meters from the riverbank.
Okay.
Option A says, the new facility is located 50 kilometers from the riverbank.
Ah, I see. The number is the same, the location is the same, but that one tiny change in the unit of measurement makes the whole thing wrong.
Fundamentally incorrect. But it's so easy to miss if you're not auditing meticulously. This trap tests whether you understand that familiarity with the phrasing is not the same thing as fidelity to the detail.
And this is where tracking your keyword is crucial. If your keyword was distance, you'd be hyper-focused not just on the number 50, but on the unit that follows it.
Precisely. This trap exploits our tendency to listen for the gist and gloss over the modifiers. When you're stressed, you hear 50 and riverbank, and the brain just fills in the rest. High performers know they have to capture both the quantity and the unit.
Okay, moving on to the second type of trap.
Type 2 is the direct opposite. This is probably the simplest trap. It's designed as a basic check on negation and polarity.
So it just directly contradicts something that was said.
Exactly. The speaker clearly says the committee rejected the proposal, and the option will say the committee accepted the proposal.
It's testing basic binary comprehension. Did you hear the verb right? Or maybe more dangerously, did you miss a critical negative word like not or never?
Precisely. It's usually the easiest one to eliminate, but its purpose is to make sure you didn't have a simple mishearing. Often, it's just there as an obvious distractor to make the final choice between the last two remaining options that much harder.
Okay, now, type 3. This is the one that tries to pull your focus way off topic.
This is the out-of-context or irrelevant option. This one brings up a topic that has zero genuine connection to the specific question being asked. Now, the example we used before was pretty dramatic.
Right, audio about Antarctica, option about Tokyo skyscrapers.
Yeah, that's easy to spot. But in a dense academic or corporate listening exercise, this trap can be much more subtle.
How does it work subtly?
Okay, imagine the audio is a lecture detailing 3 specific funding sources for a new research project: government grants, corporate sponsorship, and alumni donations.
Right.
The irrelevant option, option C, might mention something that was discussed in the previous section of the lecture, say, the plan for a new campus building. Now, it's related to the university, so it's not totally out of left field.
But it has nothing to do with the specific question about funding sources.
It is utterly irrelevant to that question. It's a trap for the listener who has lost their key word tracking and is just grasping at any familiar concept they heard recently.
So it's a test of your focus. If your key word was funding, any mention of buildings or staffing is immediately dismissed as noise, even if you heard it just a minute ago.
It forces you to stay disciplined. You have to stay locked on target.
Okay, let's give the necessary time to type 4. The sources call this one lethal. This is where the real cognitive science comes into play.
It is lethal. This is the collocation trap.
Yeah.
And it's the most dangerous because it doesn't really test what you heard. It tests your resistance to what your brain wants you to hear.
It leverages our psychology against us.
It absolutely does. Specifically, our reliance on what psychologists call System 1 thinking. That's the fast, intuitive, automatic part of our brain that just runs on pattern matching and common associations.
And in daily life, that system is incredibly efficient. When we hear a common pair of words, a collocation, our brain just finishes the sequence for us to save time and energy.
Exactly. If I say, the forecast calls for strong winds and heavy rain, your brain instantly supplies the word rain.
Right. Automatically.
So when you look at your option sheet and option B says heavy rain, it triggers this powerful, satisfying sense of recognition. And you choose it, absolutely convinced you heard it.
But the danger is that the speaker never actually said the word rain.
Never. The speaker might have said strong winds and heavy cloud cover. Or, even more trickily, they might have just paused after the word heavy and never finished the thought. The option feels right because of the common association, but it has zero textual evidence to support it.
This is the ultimate test of auditory evidence versus intuition.
It is. Assessors love this trap. It catches a huge percentage of average listeners. To beat it, you have to consciously override your fast, intuitive System 1. You have to engage your slower, more meticulous System 2 thinking and ask yourself the hard question. Did they actually say rain, or did my brain just fill in the blank for me?
Let's use a more subtle example. Say the question is about the success factors for a new company. The speaker says their explosive growth was fueled by innovative marketing, strong leadership, and generous investor.
Okay, the obvious collocation that jumps to mind is funding or capital.
Right. So option C on the sheet will definitely read generous investor funding.
Of course it will. But what if the speaker actually said, and generous investor patience?
Whoa, that's a great example. Because funding is so expected, the moment a listener scans the options and sees that familiar phrase, investor funding, they just lock onto it. They completely miss the surprising, counterintuitive detail that the real key was patience.
This trap forces you to engage with the unexpected. High scorers actually train themselves to be suspicious of options that feel too easy or that use a really common phrase. They know the test is looking for the precise wording, not the intuitive guess.
And again, this is why the keyword tracking is the only real defense. If your keyword was factor, you are ready for a noun to follow. But because you're hyper alert, you have the spare mental capacity to notice if that noun patience is unusual.
You have the capacity to register the deviation. If you're just struggling to keep up with the audio, you'll default to the path of least resistance every time. And that path, is the collocation.
And that just leaves us with type 5.
Type 5 is, of course, the correct answer, but the strategy here is critical. You do not look for the correct answer first. That's a fool's errand.
You find it by getting rid of the wrong one.
You build confidence by eliminating the decoys. You look at the options and you eliminate them based on the criteria we just laid out. Is it a type 1 with a tiny error? Is it a type 2, a direct opposite? Is it a type 3, totally irrelevant? Or is it a type 4 collocation trap?
So it's certainty by process of elimination. If you can confidently kill A, B, and C because you've identified the specific trap in each one, then D, no matter how strange it might have sounded, must be the answer, as long as you can trace it back.
And that feeling of certainty is priceless in a high-pressure situation. You're not making a tentative guess anymore. You're making a verified selection.
We've covered the prep phase with keywords and the tactical response with decoding the MCQs. Now we need the ultimate real-time signal. The one word that cuts through all the noise and tells you exactly where the most important information is hiding. And according to our sources, it's a very small, unassuming word, B-U-T.
But it is the single most powerful linguistic cue in English. It's the rhetorical pivot point. And test creators use it constantly because it instantly separates the background information from the final verdict.
So what's the ironclad rule we need to remember when we hear that word?
The rule of diminishment. It's simple. Everything stated before the word but instantly becomes less important, becomes secondary. It's just set up. The real message, the decisive factor, the critical qualifier, it's always the information that comes after the but.
So the speaker is basically signaling you. They're saying, okay, here's some preliminary info, but now discard that, or at least qualify it heavily, because what I'm about to say now, this is the truth. This is the real constraint.
It completely shifts the rhetorical weight of the sentence. I could spend a full minute praising a new product, talking about its great features, its sleek design, but if I then say but,
everything you just said is basically nullified.
It's nullified. The critique that follows the but is the only thing that actually matters for the final decision.
Let's use some examples that are a bit deeper than a product review to show how strategic this is. How about in a policy discussion?
Perfect. Example 1, an infrastructure plan. A city council member is speaking and says, this new bridge project will significantly ease traffic congestion and boost local economic growth. But T, the required municipal bond issuance will strain our local tax revenues for the next 2 decades.
Okay, and the question is, what is the primary concern with the plan? The first, partless traffic, economic boost, that's all positive. That's going to be option A and option B.
For sure. But the true limiting factor, the real concern, is a tax strain. And where did it appear? Right after the...
It's the pivot. The speaker acknowledged the good stuff, but the actual hinge for the decision, the constraint, was introduced by that one word. The correct answer will always be tied to that second clause.
Invariably. Let's try a more academic example, maybe from a research presentation.
Okay.
Example 2, study results. A researcher is on stage and says, our preliminary data shows that the new teaching methodology significantly improves student test scores. But T, the study cohort, consisted exclusively of highly motivated, high-achieving students.
And the question asks about the limitation of the study's findings. The initial positive result, the improved scores, that's just the setup. The critical qualification, the thing that limits how much you can generalize from this, it comes right after the but.
Right. The limitation isn't the scores, it's the narrowness of the cohort. If you miss that word but, you might just latch on to improved scores and pick an option that says the methodology is a universal success.
Listening for that conjunction forces you to capture the caveat, the condition, the limitation.
It's everything.
What if a speaker tries to be tricky and uses 2 buts in a row? Like, we love the product, but it's too expensive, but the company is offering a 50% discount this week.
That's rare, but it's a great question. The rule just applies hierarchically. The second but diminishes the first but. The first but introduced a problem. It's too expensive. The second but introduces the solution, or the mitigating factor, the discount.
So the ultimate focus is on the last but, the final qualification.
Always. The ultimate decision hinge is the discount, which negates the problem of the expense. The focus is always on the final, most impactful statement.
So hearing the word but needs to be our internal alarm bell. It's the signal for critical and often counterintuitive information.
It is. It's what separates people who are just passively absorbing words from those who are actively tracking the meaning and the decision points inside the conversation.
You have to train yourself so that the second you hear that word, Your brain just snaps to attention.
It has to be an instant shift in your cognitive state. You have to know instinctively that whatever follows is the information most likely to hold the key. It is the moment of truth.
Wow. We have covered a huge amount of ground today. We've gone all the way from, recognizing these crippling cognitive failures to laying out some very specific, high-level tactical responses.
We have. To just quickly synthesize, we started by putting a name to that disaster we've all felt, the seagull missing phenomenon.
Right, that cognitive cascade where missing one little thing leads to panic and then missing 3 or 4 more things.
And the systemic solution to that is the tracking the speaker methodology, which all relies on that really strict, disciplined use of keyword underlining.
1 or 2 content words maximum, just to create those predictable mental checkpoints so you can anticipate where the answer will be.
Then we spent a good amount of time dissecting the 5 lethal traps inside multiple choice questions.
Especially that type 4, the collocation trap, which is all about choosing precision over your own intuition, separating what you thought you heard from what was actually said.
And finally, we armed ourselves with that single most important real-time cue, the magic word BUT.
The instant pivot signal, the rule of diminishment, the word that guarantees you capture the decisive information that always follows it.
And these are not just, tips and tricks. These are structural changes to how you process spoken language. When you practice them enough, they stop being deliberate actions and they just become automatic reflexes.
And that's when you'll see those significant jumps in comprehension and efficiency, not just in a test, but in any high-stakes environment. And as we wrap up this deep dive, we want to leave you with one last provocative thought. Let's take these techniques outside of the test center and into just everyday life. If we accept that strategic listening requires us to identify constraints and to rigorously check what comes after the word BUT, think about how that applies to how we consume media or political arguments or complex news reports.
Yeah, that's a powerful thought. If the average person just operating on that fast System 1 thinking only hears and processes the information that confirms what they already believe, they're basically falling for the collocation trap all day long.
Right. They're letting the comfort of their own associations fill in the blanks.
So how much critical qualifying information are we all missing? Are we listening for the nuance? Or more importantly, are we religiously listening for the word BUT, that pivot point that introduces the necessary constraint or the uncomfortable qualification to what we thought we knew?
So a challenge for you this week. Just listen for the buts. In every conversation, every news report you hear, and actively measure the weight of the statement that follows. Is the real heart of the message always hidden in that second half?
Until next time, keep tracking that speaker and keep overriding those System 1 assumptions.
And keep diving deep.